What's up, guys? Blade Master here with the very first battle in the Big Blade. Blah, 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 wow, excellent fucking intro. With the first game in the Big Blade Balance tournament. Round 1, Game 1, fought between Johann Otto Trimalchio and Moustacheman. Now, I will give you 3 seconds to guess what Trimalchio has picked, what faction Trimalchio has picked. And as for what Moustacheman has picked, I'll give you a guess with these guys. Well, actually, no. That probably pins them down to like 4 or 5 different factions. So let me just go ahead and tell you what the factions are. Trimalchio has picked, of course, Swaby, and Moustacheman has picked Nervii. Now, this I think is a very, very interesting faction matchup. But before that, let me go over the map. This is fought in Mons Regius. One kind of cool thing that I like about this tournament is that it forces there's a map for each round basically, so you have to play your matches in each round in that particular map, or your wins or losses will not be counted. So this forces players to adapt strategically to different terrains and different maps. All the maps are basically completely balanced, except that they have a few distinguishing features that stands them apart from Nemeticena. So in the case of Mons Regius, you have these like little settlements that are impassable terrain, which could make for some pretty cool things with pikes, where you can have little choke points, or you can end up with barbarian armies splitting off in two and then having two separate battles decide equally the outcome of the entire battle. So in terms of the matchups, I'm going to take a little bit of time to talk about Nervii and Swaby, because I think that this is just such a cool matchup between the two factions. But actually, before that, what I'm going to go ahead and talk about is the fact that these players have chosen such relatively powerful factions in the start of the game, or sorry, the start of the tournament. Now, one thing about the Blade Balance tournament is that each faction can only be used once. So if you use this faction, and especially for Trimalchio, we all know that Trimalchio's favorite faction is the Swaby, and the one that he does by far the best with is Swaby, at least in my experience. Now, he might have a slight case of PTSD from losing in his first round against me in the domination tournament, not the domination, the use it lose it tournament, where he used to pick Swaby and whoop my ass all the time. And then in round 1, he decided to pick Gedai, and he tried to leave Swaby in for a later round. So he picked Gedai and I picked Arya, and I actually beat him. So that means he lost. He got out of the tournament immediately. So I think that's kind of fuck. In slow motion. So I think he has a slight case of that, because he's like, you know what, I'll pick one of the strongest factions in the tournament at the start of the tournament against, no disrespect to Moustacheman, but an unclanned player. So we usually don't know what the quality of these players are. Maybe it's not great, maybe it's okay. So it's kind of a gamble. If I were Trimalchio, I'd probably just save my better factions for later, because he has a lot of pretty tough opponents on paper to look forward to. There's Diplomat in his side of the bracket. I believe he has Obelix too, or you know what? I'll probably put something. I'll put a thing of the bracket so you guys can probably see. But what I recall was he had quite a few strong opponents in his side of the bracket. It's kind of the same on the opposite side as well. So yeah, him using up by far his favorite faction at the start of the tournament is something that could be a questionable choice as it progresses, but that is all conditional on him winning this battle, which we don't know yet. Now, talking about the actual faction matchup, Nervii basically beats Swaby on all fronts. They have mid-tier melee cavalry in the Mighty Horse, whereas Swaby doesn't have that. They have very good mid-tier melee infantry in the Fierce Swords, the decent mid-tier melee infantry. They have access to Naked Warriors, but they don't have any skirmishing components, and all of their units are very lightly armored. And if there's one thing that we know about Swaby, is that they actually have very surprisingly strong skirmish power. As you can see here, Trimalchio has brought some Germanic Scout Riders. They're about to get caught by Moustacheman's solitary mercenary Germanic Scout Rider. That's another thing that really plays into the faction matchup, is that both of them have access to by far the strongest Javelin Cavalry unit in the game. The most cost effective, not the strongest, most cost effective in the mercenary Germanic Scout Rider. And this is a unit that you would see Trimalchio use incredibly well in his playthroughs. But that can easily be countered by literally the exact same thing that can be brought by the Nervii. But as for now, the Germanic Scout Riders for Nervii has died without causing too many casualties, only giving one casualty for the Germanic Scout Riders of Trimalchio. So yeah, using his numbers advantage there and getting a lot of kills on the Germanic Scout Rider. I think the Celtic Slingers have gotten a couple of kills in the process, and maybe the Oaths one, I'm not really sure. So yeah, that's one of the things. And the thing is, the quality and the variety of units that Nervii can bring can be completely nullified by a proper fast charge from an Aryo-Vestige general from Suebi, and that all that advantage that I just listed of Nervii can be completely wiped out in an instant. It just depends on if the Suebi player does it well or not. So kind of the impetus of winning falls into the hands of Trimalchio with Suebi, because I think Nervii definitely has a much better roster. Let's take a look at the actual army that Moustacheman has brought. There are a total of 8 melee infantry max rule. There is a max 8 melee infantry rule in the tournament. So he's brought 4 naked warriors, and he has brought a total of 4 Oathsworn. You kind of see something similar to this in that you see players bring 4 Celtic warriors and 4 Oathsworn, go very cheap and very elite heavy with just completely sacrificing fierce swords, which I don't think is a good idea against something like Suebi, because you want to capitalize on your very cost effective mid tier infantry. The naked warriors have got a big buff in that they scare opponents now, but I would still have preferred to see some fierce swords being brought. And go a little less Oathsworn heavy and then bring some mighty horses. You can see he hasn't brought any. He's brought a total of 3 Germanic Scout Riders, one of whom is already dead. The other one's giving chase to the mercenary Germanic Scout Riders. Germanic Scout Riders have done a fair bit of damage on the naked warriors already. That's one of the problems. If Suebi brings a big skirmishing component, then that you would just lose all these naked warriors. Even the fierce swords are quite susceptible to missile infantry, but at least they have some sort of armor, whereas these guys have only 10, which is basically non-existent. He's also brought a couple of Levy Freemen and 2 Spear Brothers. Spear Brothers, not really sure why he's decided to bring them. Maybe just to give as a holding force. They have good melee defense. But they don't have shield screen, which would reduce their staying power by quite a bit. I think maybe they were going to be used as stronger, missile bait, basically, because they have good shields, at least better shields than the naked warriors. Try and screen off the susceptible naked warriors with the Spear Brothers. And he's got an extra Spear Brother over there. As for Trimalchio, let's put this back on play. Trimalchio has got some very depleted mercenary Germanic Scout Riders. He's got 1 Germanic Scout Rider at half strength and 3 basically full strength, I believe. Yeah, 3 basically full strength Germanic Scout Riders. He has split his army into 3 completely separate components. We can see 2 Woden Spear backed up by a Noble Riders on Trimalchio's right. We can see 2 Woden Spear, and I would definitely think that there's a Noble Rider. Actually, no, we're seeing this from Trimalchio's point of view, so there's no Noble Rider on the other flank. So if there were Mighty Horse, they could possibly, maybe, take advantage of that, but I wouldn't charge any cavalry unit into Woden Spears headlong, not even Eastern Cataphracts. They're just that deadly. If they get a Javelin volley off and some cavalry counter tactics on, those Eastern Cataphracts, whatever cavalry unit you throw at them, is toast. He's brought, for his main component, 2 Spear Levy. He's brought 3 Club Levy behind them, possibly as anti-Levy Freeman units. They destroy Levy Freeman very easily. They're possibly the best unit that you can throw at Levy Freeman because they're just as cheap and they kill them off incredibly quickly. And they even have Precursor Javelin, so they can throw if there's an enemy cavalry that's coming to charge in, they can just throw their javelins and kill them off just like that. He's brought a couple of Berserkers behind them, 2 Bloodsworn, a single Hex Bearer unit, and a Noble Rider. Hex Bearer could be useful, but I don't see why it would be, because he hasn't brought some critical units that I think are missing from his army, which would be perfect against a Nervii army in the Cimbri Bowwomen and or Germanic slingers. The Cimbri Bowwomen, I would definitely prefer to bring them because they would pair in very well, or even the Longbow Hunters would pair in very well, popping some Flaming Shot with the Hexbearer's Scare, and these girls have a Scare ability which reduces morale by I think -5 or -10, and they have a regular Fear trait which reduces morale by like -5, -10, and then you pair that in with a Flaming Shot that reduces morale by like 10 or 15, and then you basically can insert out any unit, especially if you pair that in well with a fast charge. Celtic Slinger is doing a good job warding off these Germanic Scout Riders so far. So that's a smart idea of Moustacheman bringing three of these Germanic slingers. Here you can see the noble horse, noble riders, going to charge into Levy Freeman, destroy them. Haven't taken any casualties. The naked warriors are going to come in on Moustacheman's left. They're going to get a decent number of kills on the Noble Riders. They didn't get the Noble Riders didn't get a proper charge in, and then the Oathsworn are going to come in behind them. So the Wardenized Spears are actually in a very precarious position now. The Naked Warriors are very, very capable units, especially if you pop Frenzy on them. Frenzy hasn't been popped, and a proper charge hasn't been had, so I guess they're of limited use there. Levy Freeman going to screen off the first Spear Levy charge. Is this going to be good? We should pause this. Sorry, we shouldn't pause it. We should put this in slow motion. But this is excellent use of these Wardenized Spears here. He's going to try and charge in and then intercept some of these units so that they can't retreat. And he paired this in perfectly with his frontline engagement. The Noble Riders here are going to be critical if you can move them around and use that excess speed that they have now that they're heavy, but on top of that they have the speed bonus from fast charge, so they should be able to crash into enemy units. But it doesn't look like Moustacheman really needs to be too worried about that. The plan kind of is failing at this point. The Oathsworn are going to get a great charge on the Wardenized Spears, and then the Wardenized Spears are going to die. The Naked Warriors will help support and kill them off. And at the most, what really can he do? You can see what his idea is. He's done this very, very well. But I think he's done this 99% effectively. The Mercenary Germanic Scout Riders are coming in, killing off the Celtic Slingers, getting in some rear charges, and then holding off some of these units. But you can see these little isolated pockets are going to be very hard for him to reach with his units. It just depends on if fast charge is going to dissipate. I would argue that it would. Over here, this little pocket is going to go in the favor of Trimalchio, I think. The Naked Warriors didn't really do much. I think they died very, very quickly. And the Oathsworn here, they'll do well against two Wardenized Spears, but then a Club Levy is going to come in behind them. And these guys with their bonus versus infantry will actually do very well on a rear charge against even something like Oathsworn. That's what I've seen. And look at this. The fast charge is completely dissipated, which kind of turns the tide back into Moustacheman's hands, but it's very flimsy hands. These are hands that you don't want to trust your army into, because those are naked warriors that he's fielding. Those guys are still very flimsy. The Berserkers have come in for a rear charge against the Oathsworn, and that Oathsworn is basically dead. That's one massive unit that's going to go. Spear Levy are getting destroyed by Naked Warriors, but then the Bloodsworn are coming in, or I think it's the Club Levy. No, Bloodsworn are coming in for a charge. They got a proper charge in on the Naked Warriors, and then they're killing off a lot of them. The Germanic Scout Riders are coming in for the rear charge, and this sort of coordination is just perfect from Trimalchio. And I think that's why he's so devastatingly good with Swaby. The Berserkers over here are going to get a lot of kills on the Naked Warriors. I don't think Naked Warriors was a good idea, but let's try and take a look at this Naked Warrior charge. Let's see how effective it is. It's a high charge unit with low armor against high charge units with low armor, and you know they're just going to get a lot of kills. All of them are going to get a lot of kills, and all of them are going to die very quickly. With Nervia, you have the option of units that have a bit more of staying power, so I don't know why you would want to go with something as highly aggressive as Naked Warriors. Granted, they have fear, they have the scare trait, but yeah, I'm not really sure why he decided to bring them. Oathsworn over here will do well, but it's a mix. It's a mix of Wardenized Spears who have excellent charge bonuses. Bloodsworn have very good charge bonuses. So yeah, having some Mighty Horse would have been perfect to just disrupt these charges, the counter charges that these Bloodsworn can have. Even without fast charge, you can see they've gotten a lot of kills. The Wardenized Spears getting a good number of kills on the charge. Oathsworn trying to die. They're frightened by the enemy unit. I think there's a Hex Bearer somewhere here. No, it's the Berserkers. And they're getting into the Spear Brothers. If the Spear Brothers pop cavalry counter tactics, they can actually do a fair bit of damage onto the general. Now he's popped Pride. Holy shit, these guys are going to do a lot of damage now. The Oathsworn is getting a lot of kills, but I don't think it's going to be enough. The Naked Warriors, they've got Scare on them, which dropped their morale by a little bit, but they have very good base morale at 65. But I believe the Fierce Swords also have excellent morale. It's not 65, I think it's 60. But that itself should be good enough for them to hold out against a Swaby Fear Rush. And I don't even think that that's what Trimalchio was really going for in this battle. He's popped Force Concentration onto his Oathsworn here, which means that it'll improve its melee attack by a decent bit. Not too much, actually. And the Noble Riders, with Pride on, is getting a good charge in onto the Oathsworn General. And the Oathsworn General actually will do a good amount of damage onto the Noble Riders. I wouldn't really charge in there. And it's actually looking very, very close now. But There are these full strength well, not full strength, they only have 55 men. Wooden Spears at 56, Berserkers 57, Noble Rider at 41, and Club Levy at 109. But let's try and take a look over here. 48 men left on this Wooden 49. Lots of Club Levy. I think the way that Swaby is going to win this is by just swarming their opponent. But if the Noble Riders, I don't know why the General pulled away from this engagement. He should have just pursued that Noble Rider. If he can kill the Noble Rider General, he will be able to win off. He'll be able to win this game because the Club Levy will rout. Sure, the Warden Spears have Inspire, but against fear units like the Naked Warriors, like a rear charge like this is going to inflict massive morale penalties. You can see these guys are wavering now. Naked Warriors doing very well, but the Naked Warriors, you could see earlier on in the game, some of them just didn't pay off at all. This Naked Warrior is definitely paying off. You can see they've got 204 kills. Once they got a good charge in mid game, they're pretty devastating units. This rear charge from the Noble Riders is going to pay off handsomely for Trimalchio, destroying the Naked Warriors. They're just going to die so quickly. And then the Berserkers here with Headhunt and Frenzy going to get a beautiful charge onto the rear of Oathsworn, it looks like. Wasn't the perfect rear charge, but it's going to do the damage. And then the Oathsworn not going to do much. They've done very well. They've held out very well against a mixture of Wardenas. But the thing is, the Wardenas with their incredible melee defense of 106 men in shield screen can hold out a strong unit like the Oathsworn for a long enough time for the Berserkers and for the high value units to make their presence felt. The Naked Warriors here with fighting spirit so that they're unbreakable. They're going to attack the Berserkers. Smart play there. The Berserkers, of course, have fear, and it doesn't matter if the Spear Levy come in to rear charge them. These Naked Warriors are literally going to fight to the last man. This Oathsworn charge onto Bloodsworn and Warden Spear should devastate a lot of these units in one go. But the Noble Rider General has done really well for Trimalchio, and he's going to continue to do well, and that's going to be the key to his victory, along with the other Noble Riders, which is at 41 men. And yeah, it's a very close game, very well played to Moustacheman, but it doesn't look like he's going to be able to progress in the tournament. To take on Trimalchio with his patented Swaby army and do very well, that's saying a lot. I had no idea who Moustacheman was, but he's done very well. Nervii is not the strongest faction. I mean, if you see Trimalchio pick Swaby, you can be very tempted to just go Boei and literally just tank out an engagement, or go with Rome and tank out an engagement that way. But he's picked Nervii, not as strong a faction as many others, and he still managed to make it an incredibly costly victory for Trimalchio. Very well played to Moustacheman. I think if he brought some maybe a couple of Naked Warriors was good. You can see some of them did well, but that's the thing. They're so flimsy that bringing more than a couple of them is always going to be a massive gamble, almost unnecessary levels of gambling. One of the Oathsworn didn't do well. I think this was the one that got caught out early. That was the one supporting the Naked Warriors, and then they just died because isolated engagements like that won't really work very well for Oathsworn. To be quite honest, I'm not really sure how these guys did so poorly. The other Oathsworn did fairly decently. This is a very low performing Oathsworn too. Mercenary Germanic Scout Riders did well. He didn't allow the Germanic Scout Riders of Trimalchio to do too much damage, which is, hats off to him. But in turn, the Berserkers did very well. The Club Levy were only going to be meat shields. Either going to be meat shields, or they were going to be potent frontline infantry in a successful fast charge. That didn't happen, so they didn't do very much. The Warden Spears, of course, they always prove to be pretty decent units. I know some people think that I overrate them, but honestly, I think it's going to be hard to overrate a unit which has such a potent charge bonus for its cost, and has extra AP and very good melee attack and incredible melee defense with shield screen. So yeah, great game to watch. Thank you to Trimalchio for sending this. He progresses on to round 2 of the Big Blade Balance tournament, one step closer to getting that $50 cash prize.